Hi everybody, welcome back to the Moose. We're going to continue on now with another vamping technique. More percussion. So again, we're going to start with the fourth string position with the G chord. Okay. Now I'm going to turn the banjo again so you can get a visual on this. How's that looking? Okay. Now for this vamping technique, we're going to start with the deadening of the strings. Okay. Now if you remember in the last technique, we started with our fingers all the way down on the fingerboard. We hit those strings and then lift it up just slightly to get that percussive sound. Well, now we're going to do just the opposite. We're going to start with the deadening of the strings and then press our fingers down to the fingerboard. Okay, so we have this. And it might be a little bit hard for you to hear the sound that that's creating, but hopefully that's coming through. Again, we got our fingers starting now just slightly pressing down on the strings. We don't even have them pressing down to the frets. We're just pressing down slightly on the strings and then starting to pick our pinch, okay? So again, we're picking and now we're pressing down onto the fingerboard. So we have. So that's working just the opposite of the first way we vamp the strings, okay? So now we're going to do the same thing, okay? We'll start with this formation, this fourth string formation, and let's play our 4 beats now. Again, our fingers are resting slightly on top of the strings, just pushing them down just a little bit. And now let's do our count of 4 using that same pattern. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now again, we can consider those vamps as being eighth notes because that's one sound. If I pinch those strings. And when I press down on the fingerboard, it's creating that other percussive sound. So again, there's 2, we can consider them 2 eighth notes. So we can count this same vamp like this. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. And you can hear the sound of that percussion. And I use this a lot in my backup of other musicians, especially behind, say, when a mandolin player is taking a solo. I'll be playing this percussive sound behind the solo of a mandolin. And so again, now let's take the downbeats of 1 and 3 out of that pattern. And again, we're just going to be playing the vamp on the off beats of 2 and 4. So we have 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. Okay, and that's giving just a great percussive sound on the banjo. Okay, now let's use those that vamping technique again over the 8 measures. But let's start now with the second string position up the neck. Okay, and again, this is going to get you into the habit of switching these different chord formations, those 3 chord formations you went over, and how the switching of the chords is going to feel in different positions on the neck. Okay, so let's start with the second string position with the a G chord, and we know that's a G chord because that's a G note. Okay. Again, if you go back to the notes on the fingerboard and that whole discussion, we know where all the notes on the fingerboard are, and we're associating that G note with the second string position. So there's our G chord. Now let's form a C chord. Now we're going to use the C chord in the fourth string position, okay? And we know that that's a C note there on the fourth string, fretted just behind the 10th fret. So that's a C note. There's our fourth position chord. There's our C chord. And then let's fall back now on the bar position D chord, and again we know that that's a D chord in the bar formation because the third string fretted behind the 7th fret is a D note. So there's our D chord. So we have the G, C, G, D, G. Okay. Now again we're going to vamp along using the second technique now on the offbeats of 2 and 4. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Let me try that again. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 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 okay, so that was the second technique used in vamping, these basic techniques in vamping. And I'm going to talk about one more before we move on to other things. And you can try, again, switching your different chords in this position using that first technique of vamping as well. And it's really going to get you familiar with the left hand changing those chord shapes, full position chord shapes with your left hand. So thanks for joining me, everybody, and we'll see you next time right here on musicmoose.org.